Okay, we are recording and I am now making you the host. So you are now the host. You should be able to share your screen.
There we go. So let me know when I should begin.
You're sharing, we can see your screen.
Okay, so I can start?
Yes.
Okay. Well, welcome to Parent Session 7. I'm Marvilene Hagopian, your presenter. We're so happy you joined our live session today. You know, we hope your family is safe and healthy. We're praying for families currently experiencing unimaginable difficulties. The Dyslexia Initiative, a nonprofit organization, hosts our sessions. Please type your questions or comments in the chat box throughout the presentation. We'll respond to them periodically and, of course, during our wrap-up. If you haven't watched previous meetings, please consider visiting www.thedyslexiainitiative.org/theparentsessions. Now, our sole purpose is to share ways you can support or teach beginning literacy skills at home using a systematic, scientifically proven approach. Ashley Roberts is a co-founder of the Dyslexia Initiative and is with us today. She facilitates our meetings and monitors your comments in the chat box. Ashley, please say hello.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight.
You know, we love learning where our participants live. So if you don't mind, please write your general location in the chat box. Then Ashley will acknowledge your locations.
No comments yet, but I'm watching both Facebook and our chat box at the same time. We do have about 50 people watching us live right now. So Bermuda, we got one.
Bermuda, that's a new one for us. Welcome. So we've expanded our reach to Facebook Live, and now you can join us via Zoom and Facebook. In our audience is our panel of educators. Panel members have graciously joined us to share their expertise and insights. Having experts who are well versed in the science of reading will enhance our experience. Panel members, when I say your name, please say hello so we can see who you are. Today we have Terry.
Hi.
Michelle.
Hi, everyone.
And Marilyn.
Hello.
Okay, great. Let's transition back to our slides. We've built our sessions around the three cornerstones of beginning reading. The three cornerstones are letter knowledge, awareness of language, and mainly we're talking about the sound structure of language, and text awareness. Our purpose today is to expand upon cornerstone number 3, text awareness. Now, there are two important categories of language development: vocabulary development and background knowledge. In our previous meeting, session 6, we provided information regarding the importance of developing and expanding vocabulary. That's because an expanded vocabulary is a key component for comprehension and learning. Now, today our focus is on the importance of activating prior knowledge and building background knowledge. Knowledge is what we know and understand about a topic, and having a body of knowledge makes learning easier. Knowledge is cumulative. It develops and grows exponentially over time. Reading researcher Keith Stanovich used the term the Matthew effect to explain the importance of the acquisition of knowledge and the effect it has on learning. This is the rich get richer idea. Perhaps you've heard of it. He used this term to explain reading gaps between children who were exposed to many words and children who were not. Children who experienced extensive and varied conversations, whether through just daily talk or being read to, acquired more words and knowledge than children who did not have this rich exposure. He concluded the following: with extensive exposure to rich language and knowledge, the more words children learn, the more knowledge they develop, and the easier it is to learn. Now, the less exposure to language and knowledge, the fewer words children learn, the more likely there will be gaps in a child's understanding, the harder it will be to learn new content, and the more likely a child may fall behind. Prior knowledge and background knowledge are built during all interactions with children. The amount of knowledge they develop is dependent upon the quality of the time we spend talking, singing, playing, and reading to them. Prior knowledge is what you already know about a topic. Think of prior knowledge like as if it's Velcro. It helps new information stick. It is useful to tap into a child's prior knowledge to prepare the child for new learning. New information is easier to learn when it is connected to what is already known. Activating prior knowledge simply means eliciting from children what they already know. You can activate prior knowledge by discussing what the child already knows, asking questions, and connecting to other learning. Learning how to activate prior knowledge is an essential strategy. In the first video we're going to watch today, a special education teacher, Teacher Kim, created a series of lessons for parents. She designed them to show us how we can use this strategy at home with our children. In this video, she models how to activate prior knowledge. So now we're going to need to transition to her video. And here she is.
Hello, readers. Welcome back to Parents Help Kids Learn, where we learn what good readers do, and then at the end of each reading lesson, you practice these reading skills together. Today, we will learn another powerful reading skill that good readers use to increase their reading comprehension. And comprehending what we read is the most important part of reading. Today's lesson is good readers activate prior knowledge as they read. Let me say that again because this is our lesson today. Good readers activate prior knowledge as they read. In the words prior knowledge, prior means before. Knowledge is what you know. So prior knowledge is what you already know. Prior knowledge refers to facts or information you have learned or gained from all of your life experiences. In reading, prior knowledge refers to what you already know about a topic. Prior knowledge can also be referred to as relevant background knowledge, experience, or schema. let's practice activating our prior knowledge. That's kind of like turning our brains on to think about what we already know about a topic. When we come to a topic, whether it's on the cover of the book or inside on the pages, we need to stop and activate our prior knowledge about that topic and then continue reading. Let's stop and activate our prior knowledge of this topic. Think about what you already know about dolphins. Tell your parent what you already know about dolphins. And as you are thinking about what you know about dolphins, your prior knowledge, I'm going to think about what I also know about dolphins. Okay, let's take a break right there. Do you have a lot of prior knowledge about dolphins? Do you have a little prior knowledge about them? Do you have some prior knowledge about dolphins? Whether you have a lot or a little, you are activating your prior knowledge about dolphins right now by thinking about what you already know about them. If you are about to read this book about dolphins, activate your prior knowledge about dolphins before reading. Activating our prior knowledge helps us to get organized by preparing our brains for new incoming information. Let's stop and activate our prior knowledge on this topic. Think about what you already know about the moon. And then tell your parent, I'll also think about what I already know about the moon. Okay, let's take a break right there. Do you have a lot of prior knowledge about the moon? Do you have a little prior knowledge about it? Do you have some prior knowledge about the moon? Whether you have a lot or a little, you are activating your prior knowledge about the moon right now by thinking about what you already know about it. If you were going to read this book about the moon, activate your prior knowledge about the moon before reading. Activating our prior knowledge helps us by becoming a foundation on which we can build new knowledge. Let's stop and activate our prior knowledge of this topic. Think about what you already know about the Statue of Liberty and tell your parent, I will also think about what I already know about the Statue of Liberty. Okay, let's take a break. Do you have a lot of prior knowledge about the Statue of Liberty? Do you have a little prior knowledge about it? Do you have some prior knowledge about the Statue of Liberty? Whether you have a lot or a little, you are activating your prior knowledge about the Statue of Liberty by thinking about what you already know about it. If you were about to read this book about the Statue of Liberty, activate your prior knowledge about the Statue of Liberty before reading. Activating our prior knowledge helps us connect what we're learning to what we already know. And these kinds of connections are what make new learning make sense. So remember, when we come to a topic, whether it's on the cover of the book or inside on the pages, we need to stop and activate our prior knowledge about that topic by thinking about what we already know about the topic and then continue reading. Boys and girls and parents, now it's your turn to practice together. Choose some just right books, and as you read, remember to activate your prior knowledge because that's what good readers do. Happy reading, and I'll see you next time.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, I'll always technical, something going to happen. Moving on. Teacher Kim demonstrated how to activate prior knowledge before reading informational text. Multiple scientific studies showed exposure to rich literature and informational text is critical. Researchers explored the role activating prior knowledge plays in instruction. The results indicated activating prior knowledge leads to better comprehension. So now we're going to go back to our slide. And we have background knowledge. Now there are subtle differences between prior knowledge and background knowledge. Background knowledge is additional information provided to the learner that makes new learning understandable. Background knowledge enhances a child's ability to learn, understand new ideas, and think critically. This happens when children are provided with multiple exposures to language and information. We can build background knowledge by reading aloud. Literature is one of the ways children acquire information. Reading aloud and conversations about the book has tremendous benefits. The kinds of discussions about the book being read may differ depending upon whether the book is nonfiction or fiction. If it's nonfiction, talk about what the child learned and how it fits into our world. If the book is fiction, discuss the characters, setting, plot, problems, and solutions. Fictional stories not only stimulate a child's imagination, they help the child develop an understanding of human nature. It's important for parents who might be reluctant to read aloud to their children to remember that it's not how well they read. It's the simple act of engaging children in interactive discussions that has great value. Now, in our next video, Dr. Julie Washington expounds on this idea. So we're going to stop here and share her video, which is quite short, but very good.
Dr. Washington, what can we do to help parents who themselves are reluctant readers or don't have a rich vocabulary of their own?
I think I really resonate to some of the things that Dr. Risley is saying about talking, because when we're talking about reading, it's the same issue, that you want to get the message out that it is important to interact around books. Reading is not necessarily the point. Certainly with very young children, it's the interaction around the book. And it's also important, as we're getting the message out, that as professionals, we're providing models for what this looks like and what we're asking parents to do. A lot of times we tell parents to read to children, and for a parent who's a reluctant reader or who doesn't have good reading skills themselves, how to do that is something that they're not quite sure about. And so modeling the interaction around the book, if you have a 30-page book and a 3-year-old child, the point is not getting through the 30 pages. The point is the book, the narrative. You can use books that don't have words, wordless picture books. It's the story, it's the interaction, it's the talking, it's being involved with the child. And I think getting that out to parents and showing them and telling them that the point really is the interaction. It's not how well you read to your child. It's not that you read the whole book. It's that you have the interaction around the book, that you tie it to things that are important in your family, and make reading a fun activity and an important activity for children. Children have to realize the value of reading, and that it's an exciting thing to do. It's a fun thing to do with your parent. It's cuddle time with mom or dad, and reading becomes something that children want to do. And that's something we're really trying to teach at these young ages before children are in school, that books are good, reading is good, and the experience is great.
Okay, this time I remembered to pause. And now we go back to our slide. And I think right now I need to back up one. There we go. Now, other ways of building background knowledge through multiple exposures is by taking field trips. Field trips can happen anytime, anywhere. Take a walk around the neighborhood, go to the park, go on a hike, or take a drive in the country or city. Go to the park, go on a hike, visit a museum, an aquarium, or a sporting event. When you're indoors, you might watch an educational program because there are numerous programs on TV or online about outer space, nature, faraway places, and even how to make friends. Talk about what you see, whether at home or on a trip. Find opportunities to talk to your children about what they are doing, seeing, or experiencing. By asking open-ended questions, you encourage your children to respond. Listening to a child's answers and comments and replying to what was said is a critical conversational skill. It also helps us figure out whether the child is understanding. And then you might want to follow up with a book. Choose books that pique your child's interest. You can visit the library or go online to get more information about a topic. Children may create their own books with photos they have taken or drawings depicting what they saw. They can tell you about the picture and you can write what was said. This memory book can be revisited multiple times as a reminder of things you and your child learned and experienced. Now, as you know, every time you interact with the child is learning. Consider sharing stories about your passions, such as cooking, art, sports, science, or even family history. Develop your child's curiosity about these and other subjects. Prior knowledge and background knowledge have been shown to be key factors in reading comprehension. So the more children know about the world, the better their comprehension will be, and the easier it will be to learn new information. Now, we are going to watch another wonderful video of how 3 preschool teachers presented a unit to their children for the purpose of building background knowledge. As you're watching, notice how they first determined what the children already knew, their prior knowledge, and how they built upon this knowledge to provide them with a broad learning experience. So now we're going to switch to our last video of this session. And here it is.
In the beginning of the year, we send out a survey to families, and it says basically what sort of areas does your child know. We chose the dramatic play topic based upon that research that we received from our families.
And it seemed like the grocery store is one of the places that kids know that they'll have visited before. So we really wanted to start from the basics.
And it was also a place that there could be multiple roles in dramatic play. We knew we were going to web with the children to really find out what the children know about the grocery store.
What do we do at the grocery store? Things that they have seen at the grocery store, things that they buy at the grocery store.
Do I have to do anything? I just take the food with me. No, you have to pay. Oh, I have to pay with what? What does that mean?
We found a video on the internet. So for the kids that have not go to a grocery store, then at least they get the idea of what it is and how it looks like.
Because I see the shopping carts and I can also read, and right here it says Whole Foods, okay? So that way I know, foods.
They sell food
I
here.
see an F.
It was a great way for the children to visually have something they could see prior to playing in the actual grocery store.
My friends, on the art table, I see some boxes.
Ooh.
Because when we
And
talk
then-
about our grocery store, do you see what's in this picture, Kisa? A grocery store. A grocery store.
Moving forward was a lot of work, a lot of planning with the kids.
Do we have any money? Do you have any money in your pocket right now? You do? Do you
Let's
have
see.
money in your pockets? Let me see.
Let's see.
No money.
No money.
What do we have to do? We have to make some money.
We did small groups in tables.
For the children to have lots of hands-on experience creating the props for the grocery store, the signs, a great way to bring in math in terms of money.
And then after you're done making all of your labels, we will put them on blocks. So we will have our own cans.
For the grocery store. I see.
And the kids were able to create every single item and every single sign with numbers, letters, money, everything that comes to having a grocery store in a classroom, they did. So when we did the grand opening, it was really fun. The kids were so excited because we had closed dramatic play for like 2 or 3 days.
We did our initial introduction where myself and my coworkers chose different roles.
And what we did was we model what we do or how we go to the grocery store.
You're welcome. Have a great day. Oh, I appreciate your help.
So now I can make everything I need, and you can just have a seat. I'll make you your
Oh,
cookies.
thank you.
So, my friends, do you see how Miss Sydney had a job? Miss Carla had a job? And Miss Leisha had a job.
That was the way we introduced our grocery store
So,
to the children's before they started playing. So they had the idea of this is how I play here, or this is what I do at the grocery store.
And if you can't role play it, then the children really don't know the different roles that they can play and will only do all of the same thing or all of what they're familiar with. So by choosing the different roles, I think it gave them an example for how they could interact with the items in dramatic play.
At the beginning, I would say like the first couple of days, they modeled most of what we have already modeled to them.
When we first introduced it, we actually chose 2 of the older children and 2 of the younger children to start dramatic play. And the younger children often take a step back and let the older children sort of direct the play.
Wait, we're going to do some
And then the more familiar they become with different scenarios that they have seen or acted in, they continue to use it again and then again. So then they become the ones to direct.
Hey, welcome to my store. Welcome to my store.
I think that this grocery store setting really enabled children who don't often play in dramatic play to come in and choose a role.
Here's your money. Thank you. It says market. Wait, what's a market? It's when you sell stuff. We noticed actually in the fall that many of the children were talking about going to the fair and what they got at the fair, what they saw at the fair.
And then Leisha and myself thought about it and we were like, wait a minute, maybe we can do a market now because they know what a grocery store is. So now we can go over to a market.
My friends, we are going to have a market, a lot like this craft fair. And we are going to make items and we're going to invite our friends from the blue room, from the green room, from the purple room, from the toddler room, and they are going to come and buy some of the things that we make for them. We really wanted it to be sort of different mediums, like one would be clay, one would be wood, one would be fabric, just made of different sort of natural materials.
We made pinch pot out of air clay, jewelry using pipe cleaners and beads, sun catchers using glue and food coloring, quilts, and we framed them, wooden pieces, we use real wood.
But we're not going to take them home. We're going to sell them in our market.
The hard part was keeping the items to sell. I think it's a really difficult concept for children that young not to say, I want to take it home to my family. And so as we talked about it over and over and over, the children got really excited that other children were going to come into their classroom, that we were going to set this up, and that they could be experts of each item.
A necklace, you made a beautiful necklace. Can you put that on Can you make another one for our market on the basket?
We have made all of these fabulous things to the market, but how do we get our friends to come to the market?
Many of them have had experience with receiving an invitation for a birthday party.
So we wrote invitations for every classroom. We did small groups again in tables, and each group wrote an invitation with the kids' words.
And then we get to deliver it, which is, they love it, that they get to walk to the classroom and they read the invitation to the teacher, and it was an overall great experience.
So we have an invitation to go to the tea next Monday.
They had their invitation, and so they knew when to come. And each child had a ticket, and we made a pathway leading through the market, and we described to them that they could pick one item per ticket.
And we have market experts that can tell you what we have.
We encouraged them to travel through the whole market so they could really sort of get a lay of the land and see all of the different items that were for sale.
We placed at least 2 children per center for table, and they were explaining how they made the item, what they used to make the item, what the item was, and it was so beautiful.
Look at all your hugs from your chair room friends. Love it.
I think the children had a sense of pride in the final product.
It's always like we have this idea, but they really put more into it.
I heard from many children outside who said this was the best day ever, and this was awesome, and everyone came to our classroom, and I think they also had a sense of pride that another child was taking home an item that they made.
So I really think that by having them be part of our dramatic play and our setup and our hands-on experiences really, really play a important part of the kids wanting to be in dramatic play.
That the more freedom you give them to create their own items and create based off of their own ideas, it really leads to a more rich play center.
Think about how much the children learned. The teachers spent a lot of time carefully and thoughtfully planning their lessons. They activated prior knowledge, assessed what the children knew, and then provided additional information that the children needed to know to build and run a store. The teachers engaged the children in playful and creative ways that helped them learn many different things, such as how to set up a store, spend money, what it's like to be a customer or a store clerk, and much more. You know, we can do the same things with our kids at home. And I think we really should. Now, back to our slide. Oh, let me back up a little bit here. Okay. Sorry about that. So let's reflect on what we covered in this meeting. Talking, playing, and reading with children has advantages beyond our imagination. Before introducing something new, activate a child's prior knowledge. Activating a child's prior knowledge will prepare the child for new learning and solidify what the child already knows. Build background knowledge. You can help a child develop background knowledge about a variety of subjects. The more your child knows, the easier it is to learn new content. So whenever you can, expand upon your child's interests. Interact with enthusiasm to your child's comments, questions, and creative play. This is extremely important because interaction reinforces learning, empowers children to express their ideas, and motivates them to learn more. Well, here we are. As always, we recommend visiting the links on the Dyslexia Initiative's website. We encourage you to make it a habit to deliberately, purposefully help children expand their background knowledge. Talk about things that interest your child. Before an activity or reading a book, find out what your child already knows about the topic. Build background knowledge to prepare your child for new learning and reinforce new learning through engaging, interactive discussions and play. Well, we're nearing the end of today's formal presentation. The topic of our next session, scheduled for February 9th, is phonological awareness skills. Words, syllables, onset rhyme, rhyming words, and phoneme awareness. The focus will be on preschoolers. Another favorite part of our meeting is the wrap-up chat. This is our opportunity to get to know each other, make comments, ask questions about today's session. You may have some other questions. So we'll stop our screen share and get started. Now, Ashley and Terry will be monitoring our chats. So I'm wondering if we have any questions.
The questions we've had so far have been about, are the other sessions available? And yes, they are on the Dyslexia Initiative website /the-parent-sessions. But if you go to the Dyslexia Initiative's website, it's dyslexiainitiative.org, and go to recorded sessions, you'll see the parent sessions there. So all of Marvi's sessions, her PowerPoints, and all of the amazing content that she's been sharing is all linked right there. And you can find the sessions on YouTube as well.
Do we have any other questions or comments?
We had a comment from Sarissa saying, yes, she's learning how to do this with a teenager with autism. Teenagers don't like mom to talk to them about books. It makes him seem like a baby. And then his cognitive disabilities causes some delays in communication with processing speed. So I'm learning to walk this tightrope with reading with a middle schooler. Plus I have dyslexia myself, but mine is less severe than my children's.
You know, as we work through these sessions, and we started at the beginning. That's why we call this the beginning at the beginning session. I think what's important for us to all understand is that our children are at different levels, and we need to work with, as this mother is, she's working at her son's level, and it will I am sure reap big rewards. And that's one of the reasons, that's one of the things we're focusing on here, because it doesn't this isn't about a person's age. It's more about where they are in their development. And if what we're wanting to do is to share with parents these developmental stages. Developmental, we're not talking age. These different stages of learning. If you don't know the sequence of learning, so we've been talking about learning letter names. We've spent a lot of time on vocabulary development, today background knowledge. If we don't know what that sequence and what pieces come first, it's really hard for us as parents to help our children. I know, all of this information that we're sharing, I did not know when my children were growing up. So, and I have a son who is severely dyslexic, couldn't even read at the first grade level when he was 13 years old. So, I really appreciate and understand the importance of starting where our children are, and that's what we're doing. And so, good for you, Mom. And I am sure that the kinds of things that you are doing, you will find will be really beneficial, and we're going to be there for you and with you through this process.
She's made another great comment that it reminds me to just talk about everything. It matters. Like when I'm at the store, my 13-year-old is listening to me talk to my 6-year-old, and it helps with knowledge. Just like this, my older son watches how I teach my younger child. It's so important to just talk and read to them read to them just because to make it enjoyable so the kids gravitate to reading.
That's right. And that was our message today. And it doesn't matter how well you read, because we have a lot to share.
We also have a 2-part question from Dina. And sorry, I got caught up with the Facebook stream because it's delayed from where we actively are at the moment. Threw me for a second. But Dina has a 2-part question, and her first one is, how do I know what my child's reading level is? And the second part is also, how do I help my child who has labored reading?
Somebody want to answer that question, or I'll get started, and then our experts can chime in. Trying to figure out your child's level is not easy if you don't have a measure. And what my colleagues and I, we're all retired, but we all worked together on Reading First back in 2005. And our team wrote assessments. That was part of Michelle and Terry were also consultants. They worked with administrators, they worked with teachers, but another part of our work was to develop assessments, reading assessments for the teachers, for various different school districts based on where the children were. So we have these tests online, and if you go to readingtests.info, you will see a title. It'll say grade level reading tests, and you might find it helpful to go there and you can download these tests for free. I'm not sure what grade level your child is, but you might even start with, if you have a child who's dyslexic, start with those kindergarten tests, because we have phonemic awareness assessments. We have the directions on how to administer them. You can kind of play around with that. And you can also I would go to the fluencies. Go, for example, go to one of the grade level tests, go to first grade, and then scroll down, find the fluencies, and see how well your child can read the fluencies. And you might also be interested in trying the reading comprehension assessments too. But I would start with first grade and just kind of work through a little bit and see the measures are all there, what the levels are, and you might be able to get a sense of where your child is by using those tests. I use them with my grandkids. So that's why I'm saying that. But Michelle and Terry, what do you think? Would that be helpful?
I think, Marvy, that's an excellent idea. And I use the fluencies with tutoring. When a child comes to me, I often have them read, because you get a sense of their level, because those reading fluencies are according to a grade level. So by doing that, you know where they are and what materials to provide for them. Because if a child is in third grade, that doesn't mean you're going to be giving them third grade material to work on. You need to find where they're reading, what their level is, what the instructional level is, and what their fluency level is. So I think that's a great idea.
Now, what's also special about those tests is they're by grade level. The tests are grade level specific. They were program specific, but when you're working with the fluencies and the reading comprehension assessments, that isn't as critical. They're all great tests. But what I was also wanting to tell you was that the first test, for example, in second grade, the first 6-week assessment is assessing the children and helping teachers or helping parents figure out where the child is, if the child is on grade level at the 6-week level. Every assessment that we wrote was carefully leveled using Hasbrook-Tyndall measures, so that the teachers would know if the child was on grade level at the 6th-week point, at the 12th week point, at the 18th week point. So each test gradually increased in difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
One test and another. So they were really carefully calibrated. So you can get a pretty good idea of where your child is if you use them.
So I think, given our audience, there might be the need to differentiate what you mean by level versus the Fontes and Pinnell qualification of leveled readers, which are not the same thing.
That's really important.
Because also at the end of the first video, she talked about a just right reader, which again is a very strong balanced literacy concept, which is not what y'all are focused on. So I think to make that differentiation here is really important.
We agree. Terry? Oh, we can't hear you, Terry. You're on mute.
I was just going to say a couple of things. The assessments are a good, absolutely a fabulous tool. If, however, a person doesn't have a lot of time or has no clue of where to start with those assessments, the San Diego Quick it just kind of does a real quick phonics, a real quick, spelling. And it will give you a general idea of where to start as far as what level. If you really don't know what level your child is reading at, it might be cumbersome to start with an assessment that like our assessments were. But the San Diego Cook will just give you a general idea about their level of phonics. It does not have a phonemic awareness piece, but there's the Torgerson phonemic awareness assessment that will help to determine whether or not that is, if it's a dyslexic child, chances are there's problems with phonemic awareness, and it will pinpoint what the actual difficulty is. And then the just right reader, that just means that the book that you choose is at a good level for that child to read. And so if you have them read one page of the book, and if they get it between 85 and 90% accuracy, then it is a just right book. It's something that they can read independently, because you want to be able to focus on their independent reading level.
That's instead of the A, B, C, D leveled.
Right. So I don't know, there was another question, but I don't remember what it was. Marilyn looks like she has a comment.
I would just add, I was just going to say pretty much what Terry said about if a child can read 90% of the words on the page, then that is likely a comfortable, I hesitate to use the word level, but it's probably a pretty good match for his or her fluency. It's important. One of the questions was, how do my child is labored? His reading is labored. Well, if your child is reading, is his or her reading is labored, that's a sign that the text is too difficult. And I think we have to remember, one of the speakers said, comprehension is the most important part of reading. Well, it's important, but really a child has to be fluent with the words he or she is reading in order to understand what the book is or page is about. So equally important is to be able to read the words smoothly, comfortably, to decode, the word if it's not one of the few that they have to memorize. So the connection here between fluency and comprehension is very, very tight. How fluent a child is a predictor of how well he or she understands what he is reading. So the whole thing about matching up books that a child can read independently, where he or she gets most of the words right, that's just really, really important. Labored reading that's a big red flag, that the book is too difficult. So I think all the suggestions that have been made here about finding, a match for your child, but you can easily do it by just listening to the one page and seeing if he or she can read most of those words. One of the issues today is that children don't often get a chance to do that frequently, reading aloud for someone so that the fluency can be assessed. That isn't always happening. So parents may have to do that at home.
So can y'all give a description though between, I hate using this phrase, but a level book in a decodable reader versus a leveled book from a Fontes and Pinnell point of view, which hasn't necessarily taught all of the, like the difference between a decodable reader is you're focusing on a set of words that you're decoding, a set of sounds, etc. And the reader supports that those lessons that you're teaching the child, versus an F&P leveled reader may have words that have not been taught yet, and therefore can create issues, and that they're not the same thing. Not to put words in your mouth, but
No, that's a really good question. Now, we've been working on beginning at the beginning sessions here, but this is our time to for parents to have these kinds of questions and comments. And I have also noticed that there's a lot of misunderstanding in our dyslexia world Facebook pages, with comments that parents make. Um, there's this big misconception about what a decodable book is like, because a decodable book is not just a Bob book, right? That has CVC words in them and has some kind of storyline. What a decodable book really is, it's a book that only uses sight words and decodable words with spellings. I'm talking about the sounds of letters and sounds that the children have been taught. Now that's a big deal. So for example, the simple word on is a decodable word. But if a child does not know that O says ah and N says n, for that child, on is a sight word. It is not a decodable word. So when choosing this, it's kind of sensitive, but in order to choose a really good decodable book for your child, you need to know which letters or spellings, for example, CH says ch, that's a spelling, which letters and spellings your child can match that particular spelling with its sound, so that they know that piece, so that they can have a chance to decode, right? Because CH, if they haven't been taught this, CH says ch, and you see a word in a decodable book, for example, chimp. For a child who doesn't know that CH says ch, chimp is not a decodable word. Any other comments from our educators? All right.
I just want to agree with exactly what you said, Marvy. And that is why many of the kindergarten sight words, some of them, they are decodable. Like you just gave that example, it could be the word on or at. If the child does not know those sounds, it is a sight word at that time. And that's why it's so important for the parents to understand it becomes a decodable word when those sounds have been taught. I just want to emphasize that I thought what you said was very important and very well expressed.
I would just add to whatever has been said, which is right on target, that it's a fair question if you're not sure to ask the teacher, what are the sound patterns that you are working on? Because I know that my child needs practice in reading words that contain those sound patterns. That's the whole point. The point of Decodables is not fine literature. It's giving practice in a skill that has been introduced, and we know that children need lots of practice, no matter what skill you're teaching them, but certainly in sound letter patterns, they need lots of practice. And actually, they like those books. They like them, So I think to distinguish between the leveled texts and the decodables, really a simple question would be, what are the sound patterns that you're working on at this time? so that I can make sure that, my child is practicing those at home.
So finishing up, I walked into my granddaughter's kindergarten classroom, and we had all of the leveled books, in a row, and I went, of course, naturally, I went straight to the leveled books and opened them, and there were so many words. I mean, we're talking about even two-syllable words with all kinds of spellings and sounds that children haven't even started to learn yet. Those those books are not they're not conducive to learning phonics. They're not conducive to becoming a fluent reader. All it does is it forces children to basically memorize the words
Or guess.
and guess. Now we have another question, and I like this one. It's really important. It says, what is a good routine for reading? For example, mom reads, then child reads, or should the child always be reading to a parent, or with a parent reading when a child struggles? So basically, this is how do you go about, reading with your child and helping them be successful, I would say.
Well, I would think that it's not just one way. I mean, sometimes you want to read to your child. When they're little and they're not reading, of course you're reading to your child. And then as a child starts to learn to read, you can read a page. I mean, you can read, they can read, you can do one page. As a parent, I could read one page, the child could read the next page. Whatever makes it fun for practicing reading. If when the child is struggling as they're reading, comes to a word they don't know, do they know a strategy? Do they have a strategy for sounding that word out? And teaching the child what the strategy is. If they've been taught a sound spelling patterns, then they have a tool for sounding out words. If they haven't been taught sound spelling patterns, they really don't have a tool. Then it comes to, well, what do they think? Generally, kids are taught consonants and short vowels. At least my children, that was the phonics that they had. So they were relying basically on what's the first sound, looking at the picture, and kind of guessing what the word was. Well, that's not really a useful strategy. And that's why we really encourage the use of a program where there is a sound spelling system that the students are taught. Like Marvy was saying, they learned that CH says ch, or TCH says ch after a short vowel. I mean, so children have to have a strategy for sounding out words.
Yep.
And I want to add to that, Terry. It's so important that when a parent is listening to a child read, that we know the sound spellings ourselves, because to just say, well, sound it out.
Yeah.
And that happens so often when it's maybe not a word that you can sound out. It may be an exception. They haven't been taught the sound spellings, but if we know as a parent or the person helping the child, we can point to those two letters or point to the sound and say sound rather than sound it out.
Yeah.
And there are techniques and skills that the adult must know in order to help the child. And one other thing I found that was helpful talking to a parent about this was the frustration of going to bed and the child wanting you to read books and stories. Well, there's a difference between, and so what they start doing is when they'd go to bed, mom would read books that were not at the level of the child, just
Right.
storybooks.
Yeah.
But it was before bedtime that they would sit and actually be tracking with the finger under the word, because it's at their proper instructional level. And so when you're helping instruct the child to read, you're having sure they track under the word. You're asking, saying what sound and blending and all of that, because it's a different exercise than some of the chapter books that you're reading to the child. So it's two different, it can be two different things. It is when they're just, are we learning to read, or are we listening longer storybooks?
Well, I would just like to say that we will get there eventually. I mean, we will be in our sessions. We will get to that point and start helping you learn what those spellings are all about. We have
Yeah.
one last question, Ashley, I believe, from Facebook.
I do. It's from Becky. She says, my daughter struggles with multi-syllable words. How can I help her? We're going to end you on a really challenging one tonight.
Well, there's a strategy for decoding a multisyllabic word, but the student has to be taught where to break the word into the two or three syllables. And it's general. I mean, there are a number of ways to do that between two consonants. I mean, I'm not going to go list them all right now, but there are about 5 or 6 different things that you do to learn how to break words into syllables. And then you chunk the sounding out by syllable. So you start with the first syllable, have them blend the sounds. After they've divided the word into syllable, go to the second syllable, blend those, then blend the first syllable with the second syllable. And then if it's a 3-syllable word, then sound and blend the third syllable, and then put all the syllables together. But they have to be taught the process of dividing a word into syllable chunks.
And
Yeah.
here, I was just going to add to what Terry said. One way to do that is to model for them. So the word is fabulous. You're looking at the word, and the word is fabulous. So you say, well, let's see, fab. I'm going to take this word apart. And so the first part is fab, and then you and less, and so on. So you're thinking out loud as you are taking the word apart. You can model that. And so maybe later in the sentence, there will be another multisyllabic word, and you may have to keep modeling, doing a lot of it before the child is ready to start doing it himself or herself. Because if he or she has not had a strong decoding background, it's going to be necessary to do a lot of modeling of how do I take apart this word into individual syllables and thinking aloud. Let's see, the first part is fab, and then there's you and less at the end. Because what the common error that I've observed with children with multi is they guess at they know the first syllable, they know the first sound pattern, they guess about what's in the middle. And they might have an idea about what's in the end, but there's a lot of guessing. So what Terry said about taking it apart into the individual syllables can really be helpful, especially if you, as a parent, do it out loud yourself, as though you didn't really know. So you're modeling it for them.
I think that is why even we start with clapping syllables with our tiny children. And even in first grade, it's so so important to understand where you break the syllables. And I know with older children, it also helps just to have looking up the word, saying it, but if they're not sure, or if the adult isn't sure sometimes exactly where it breaks, you can look at online and see where it is, and then you can explain it. It's the combinations of shan at the end and long vowels at the end of the first syllables oftentimes, and why isn't it fabulous, and why is it fabulous? We
Right.
have to hear it, and there are rules, like Terry was saying, that we as adults need to know so we can show the child, and covering it up, and definitely between, like you mentioned the two consonants, or consonant LE at the end of a word. You can cover that right up. It's a syllable, always a vowel in every syllable. So there's things to learn. And that is I think the suggestion is to know that, model it, clap it, hear it, look it up, see where it's divided. If you're not sure, if it's older children vocabulary, and right from the beginning of the little ones with 2 and 3 syllables, first grade, they are doing it if you teach them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
Oh, this has been a great session. Every session is fun. Sometimes we have our difficulties, technical difficulties. I know we did last week. A few this session, but it was a better session, and we always so very much appreciate your attendance. Know that we'll be here every other week with something new for you to learn. I believe we have about 2 more sessions. Next session, we're going to be talking about phonological awareness, and probably for the next 2 sessions, we'll cover phonological awareness. And then after that, we'll be finished with this beginning at the beginning session, and then we'll move on to talk about what children learn in kindergarten and first grade. So that's where we've been and where we're going. So thank you again for attending. Terry, Michelle, and Marilyn, thank you always for your help. This is really important, and I love doing this work. I know you do too. So thank you, everybody, for participating. We'll see you February 9th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good
Bye,
night.
everyone. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Thank you, Ashley.
Night, everyone.
Bye.